My wife said she was working late, but the hidden camera showed something else. If you have nothing to hide, why did you delete the messages? That's what I asked my wife the night everything changed. She frowned, as if I had just said the most absurd thing in the world. What? What are you talking about? I crossed my arms. Every time you're on your phone and I get close, you lock the screen or delete what you were typing. What? She huffed, rolling her eyes. You're being paranoid. And that was it. The conversation ended there. But inside my head, it was growing like a ticking time bomb ready to explode. I had always trusted my wife. I always thought we had a solid relationship. We weren't perfect, but we were partners. I was never jealous, never snooped through her things, never suspected anything. Until now. It all started with the late nights. My wife was always punctual. Always. If she said she'd be home by 6 p.m., at most, she'd be there by 6:05. She was never the type to disappear for hours without an explanation. Until suddenly, she started doing exactly that. At first, it was something I could ignore. Got stuck in traffic, stopped by the store, grabbed a coffee with coworkers. Nothing unusual. But over time, the late nights became more frequent. 30 minutes, then an hour, then 2, until one day, she came home 3 hours later than usual. No message, no warning. I spent the whole evening waiting for her, and when she finally walked in, I asked, "What happened?" She took off her shoes, grabbed her phone, and said with the most natural tone in the world, "I lost track of time at work." And I believed her, because I wanted to believe her. But after that, things only got worse. She started being vague about her day. Before, when she got home, she'd always share something about work. Now, if I asked how her day was, she'd give a quick answer and change the subject. Her phone, which used to sit on the table, was now always in her hand. Before, she'd call me to bed when she was ready to sleep. Now, she'd say she wasn't sleepy and stay on her phone for a while before going to bed. And every time I reached for her phone to look something up, she'd grab it first and say, "Why do you need my phone?" And the worst part? Even with all these signs, I still tried to convince myself it was all in my head. Until the day a friend pulled me aside and said, "Look, I don't want to interfere, but I saw your wife out with a guy. They were at a restaurant, alone. They looked really close." I felt a chill in my stomach. "Are you sure it was her?" He sighed. "I wouldn't tell you this if I wasn't sure." I stood there, trying to find an explanation. Maybe it was just a coworker. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I installed a hidden camera. I felt like a complete idiot doing it. Hiding a camera in my own house. That felt like something a paranoid person would do. Someone looking for betrayal where there was none. But I had already tried ignoring the signs. I tried convincing myself I was overreacting, that I was seeing things that weren't there. And every time I tried to believe her, something new would happen. I wasn't going to close my eyes to this anymore. The next day, while my wife was at work, I set up a small camera in the living room near the entrance. Discreet enough that she wouldn't notice. If she was truly just working late, she had nothing to hide. And if she wasn't, at least I'd have my answer. The first recording showed nothing out of the ordinary. She came home late as usual, checked her phone before walking in, and went straight to the shower. That was already odd because she used to greet me first, ask about my day. Now, it was like I didn't exist. The second night was the same. The third too. But then I started noticing a pattern. She always stopped at the door before coming in. She'd stand there for a few seconds, fixing her hair, adjusting her clothes, and always, she sent a message on her phone before unlocking the door. And suddenly, everything made sense. She wasn't acting like someone coming home from a long day at work. She was acting like someone who needed to pull herself together before stepping inside. That night, I barely slept. My mind was racing with 1,000 possibilities. What was she trying to hide? Who was she texting? The next night, I waited for her to fall asleep and went to the laundry room. I grabbed the clothes she had worn that day and held them to my face. The smell made me want to vomit. Men's cologne. It wasn't mine, and it definitely wasn't hers. My chest tightened. My eyes burned. That was the moment I realized that no matter how much I tried to deny it, I already knew the truth. But I still needed to see it with my own eyes. If I had come this far, I wasn't stopping now. The next morning, as soon as my wife left for work, I rushed to check the previous night's recording. And that's when I saw it. A black car pulled up in front of our house. She got out. And she wasn't alone. My heart pounded. My stomach turned. She stood on the sidewalk, talking to the driver. After a few seconds, she leaned in and kissed him. It was quick, but it was intimate. And I stood there, staring at the screen, unable to breathe properly. I finally had my answer. But now what was I supposed to do with it? My whole body went cold. I wanted to look away from the screen, pretend I hadn't seen it. Pretend there was still some doubt. But there it was. Right in front of me. My wife, the woman I loved, kissing another man at our doorstep. Shock came first. A part of me still wanted to find an explanation. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe it was a friend. But it wasn't. I knew it wasn't. Because no one fixes their hair like that before coming home from work. No one adjusts their clothes like that. No one sends a message before unlocking the door, unless they're letting someone know they got home safely. The weight in my chest was crushing. My heart was beating so fast it felt like it would burst out of my chest. And then came the anger. I wasn't a perfect husband, but I was always there. I always made sure she knew how much I loved her. I always did everything so she would never doubt my love. And her. She was coming home late and lying next to me after kissing another man. I wanted to confront her right then and there. Wait for her to come home and throw everything in her face. But when I heard the key turn in the door that night, I had no strength left. She walked in smiling, acting like nothing had happened. Like I was still the fool who knew nothing. And in that moment, I knew. I didn't need her answer. I already had all of them. The next morning, I packed my bags and left. She tried to talk to me. Called, sent messages, acted shocked. But I didn't care anymore. Because, for the first time in a long time, I chose myself. Would you be able to forgive?